Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Motherland, Fort Salem. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So obviously, everyone's on high alert, well, except for the ones kind of not to know, that being Adil and Abigail, about Rael being kidnapped. And once again, there was a line from that doctor in particular who was talking to her, who said that line of, once they found out, like, they tried to cut into Rael, and when she kind of dies, like, because she basically, like, turns herself just in a way so that the dude that's trying to, like, cut out her vocal cords nicks her vocal cords. She'd rather die than give them what they want. But obviously, dying doesn't work for her anymore, because immediately the power inside of her comes out and murders everyone in the room. And the dude said, like, oh, you not being able to die. He's like, that's not the first time you haven't died. That's not the first time you've died. And he said, this isn't in the report. So, once again, how are the Camarilla getting the information they're getting? Is it simply because, like I said, they have to have someone on the inside? Once again, I'm thinking the vice president, but I could be totally wrong in this regard. But I'm like, because it has to be someone, because, like, the only people that would know about Rael's power are someone that was, like, at the demonstration. It's not a massively public thing to know what she's capable of. Not unless it's a situation where, like, they have, like, eyes and ears everywhere, and it's just a network that the Camarilla has, and they just, like, heard whispers or something like that. Because whatever it is, they didn't know about the Tarim situation, that she died there. To be fair, how would they? Considering, like, everyone that was there, all the Camarilla people that were there, were killed, either by, like, the battle in season 1's finale, or specifically, like, just that whole thing. So it's like, who would have reported about what happened then and there? So it, like, has to be more recent, because Rael hasn't died since then. So for that not to be in her reports, like, no one knows that she's kind of deathless. You kind of think, like, that might have been a one-off thing. It's like, no, it keeps happening. And what I think is interesting is, like, there's kind of a plane of existence that I don't know if that's necessarily, like, inside the mycelium or whatever, or whether, like, there's, like, a pocket dimension. It's like an in-between land. I guess it's kind of almost like a limbo of sorts where the dead come. And what I think is a little fascinating is that, I guess it's specifically the mycelium talking, but it seems like the mycelium is, like, the whole point about, like, Rael's thing is it's multiple voices. It's like thousands of voices all at once. So it's like a collection of the dead. It's almost like, oh, here's a whole bunch of ancient witches. Like, you know, they kind of done a similar thing in, like, the originals with the ancestors and stuff like that. I guess another comparison would be like, and because there's a lot of Avatar: The Last Airbender / Korra, which, once again, I'm not as well versed in Korra, so I'm using more specific Avatar, but, you know, a lot of the same elements apply. But I think it's kind of like the Avatars, where, like, the previous, like, Avatars are with you. I think it's kind of a very similar thing, but I think there is one main voice amongst the mycelium, and that's the one that I think mainly talks to Rael. But it was like, most people want power. You don't. I think that's why it's taken such an interest in her, because she didn't want this battle. This battle came to her. She doesn't want this power. Like, most people would give anything to have that power. Abigail wanted to do anything to have that power, but Rael wants nothing to do with it. And it's like, that's why you need this power more than anyone else, because you don't want it. Because someone who wants power can easily be corrupted. You know, absolute power corrupts absolutely. But if you're someone that turns away from power, has no interest in power, that's the type of person that needs to be in power, you know? Because it puts Rael on, like, a very completely different level, even to, like, Sarah. Now, because we don't know if Sarah's the only one that could do the biddy thing. Like, maybe that's something specific to her bloodline, maybe that's just something specific to her, but, like, we've yet to see anyone else necessarily do the whole, like, oh, like, non-aging, being as powerful as she is thing. So that kind of begs that question of, like, this kind of puts, obviously, Rael is on a different level with the fact that she literally can't die, but it does seem like there are limitations to it. I'm jumping around a little bit, but obviously, like, I'm curious, like, because later on the guy wanted to test whether or not Rael could control it, so he kills her with, like, that giant stone thing, which is supposed to be like the equivalency of the old school thing of, like, taking a stone slab and basically crushing someone to death. It's like, he went super ancient, not super ancient, but old school, and once again the sick twistedness of him being like, oh, like this makes you, calling her an abomination. It's like, it takes an abomination to do what you're doing, like kidnapping young girls, and it's a new level of low, like doing what he's doing. But once again, it's like they believe themselves to be heroes rather than the monsters that they are. They look down on witches for being monsters, but can't even really truly see the reflections in the mirrors of what they are and who they are. But like he kills her, but the mycelium doesn't kill, that power doesn't kill the little girl. So it's like, oh, it doesn't kill witches. It's like, I think it might be more cognizant than that, where it's like, no, it doesn't kill anything that's not a threat. Well, to be fair, it didn't get enough. Well, it couldn't really get to the rest of the. Well, I don't think anyone else was in the room. I think it was just the little kids at the time. So maybe it is just like, oh, it doesn't work on, it won't kill witches. So either it's that, or it's a situation of it just doesn't kill anything that's not a conceivable threat. I don't know. So I thought that was fascinating. But because before she like died, like that time, like Rael was like, I'm sorry, because she can't control it. But the power inside of her isn't just, it can be controlled, but it's also cognizant. So I'm wondering, was it reactive? What, like, did it back down because she did go, don't hurt them, they're innocent, so it listened to her before like she died? Or is it, once again, its own consciousness, like that it's a living thing inside of her essentially? So I'm like, I'm like kind of very similar to like a symbiote. So I'm like, I said that weird. I said it like the movie Symbiote and Symbiote. I don't know. I don't, not obviously it's still a big mystery about like that whole circumstance. So, because it matters in a way whether whether that was it adhering to what she wanted, or whether it was just it consciously enough being like, no, these are witches, these are innocents, let's not kill them. I don't know. But once again, it does have its limitations, because even the witch plague takes its toll on Rael, because like the power inside of her was fighting it back. But I think it's like a constant struggle between life and death. Like she wouldn't have been able to keep it up forever. I think it would have eventually killed her, because I guess it does such rapid damage all at once. So it's such encompassing, like, I mean, this thing attacks you at probably like every core element of who you are as a witch. So there's probably only so much this power could do to fight it off, which the fact is that it can fight it off at all speaks volumes, because nothing and no one else has ever been able to survive like an immediate attack from this thing. It's been like immediate death up to now. But the fact is that Rael was able to hold off at all. But maybe like in a situation where she can kind of like really flex and use her powers, then maybe the circumstances would have been different. Like she probably naturally could have fought it off. I mean, she kind of has fought off the plague before, but it's like diverting it like she did to save Khalida. So, but it's just because at the time she couldn't do it. Like doing it for yourself, like I don't think it's possible. I mean, maybe with her powers, maybe it would have been possible, but she wasn't free to do it herself. She was being attacked at the time, and obviously still the paralytic in her system and stuff like that. So she couldn't fight back herself. It'd probably be different circumstances, but so there's that. There's Tally informing Quinn, because it turns out Quinn, as well as like other people around her, like, so she's part of the Dodgers, which I'm assuming Tiffany might have went to them eventually, if she's still not where like Rael's mom and Scylla left her. But obviously Tally informs them about like this was a Camarilla. They pretty much figured it out, but it's like, right, they've learned to like take our voices and do a very like corrupted version of our, and twisted version of our work. So kind of put the word out. Obviously Tally wants to do all she can to help find Rael. Obviously her dad, Rael's dad, is freaking out, wanting to know answers. Scylla calls, pretending to be like, oh, I'm with the witch, like the military or whatever. And it's like, right, now like her and Rael's mom knows, like, they got her, so let's go. At the same time, there's like, you have Sarah still dealing with the aftermath of the last episode, and Anacostia still being by her side, even thinking of her, despite all our issues, thank you for staying by my side. And she wants to kind of get out of there, but she's in such a weakened state. And I think that's probably the most frustrating thing for her. Like, she probably hasn't felt like that since she was like, you know, obviously there was that little play that was held in season 1 that was kind of reflective of her story, like kind of like where it kind of truly began. So that's probably the last time she probably felt kind of powerless or helpless, and like it's probably the most frustrating thing in the world to be in that moment feeling like you can't do anything, like you have to lean on others. It's like, oh, like the vice president wanted to speak now, and it's like, right, she can't leave that place, because if she leaves the place, this attack from the spree could happen again. It can make her an open target. At least down there, she'll be potentially safe. So it's like, well, what do we, you know? So she gives Petra, like, the one that kind of is like, right, we're going to shut down all these testing sites for witches until like we find, you know, make sure that everyone's safe and everything's okay. So, but obviously for Sarah, it's just like, I'm not going to just sit down here like forever waiting. So it's like she wants things to kind of happen, like she wants to heal up quickly so she can kind of go on the offensive, because I don't think she likes being on the defense. It's kind of, you know, she wants to kind of strike back. Let's go ahead and wrap that up really quickly. Like, in the aftermath of everything, Tally hears the way Sarah talks about Raelle. It's like, oh, yeah, because even at first she's like, yeah, I'm going to get back Raelle, like our greatest weapon, you know, one of my daughters. It's like, but then later on she's like, oh, the asset was saved. It's like, asset, that's all she is to you, is a weapon, like, you know? And it's just kind of like, no, like, that's the problem with Alder. I mean, because for her, I'm sure the argument could be like, Alder, unlike most witches, it's like you are, I guess almost like a Loki thing of almost like, it's not, I was about to say plagued with glorious purpose, but it's like plagued with knowledge of seeing the bigger picture. It's like whatever means necessary, like Raelle can change the tides of this great enemy. The enemy that is the enemy to all witches, which once again makes Nycta's attack, I brought it up last episode and I can't stress it enough, this is the weirdest time to decide to do this. I mean, you've got your number one enemy knocking at the door, but the fact is that she hates Alder that much that it's like, oh, I'm not even going to worry about the Camarilla. That's another thing. I've got an opportunity to hurt you, I'm going to take it. Like, that speaks volume. That runs deep. Her hatred for Alder runs deeper than the Camarilla. You'd never think that. But I guess it's like because she's no different than a Camarilla, since she's willing to sacrifice and kill witches for her own purpose. The Camarilla, I guess, like for Nycta, it's like you're just on the same level. So killing you is just like killing someone from the Camarilla. I guess maybe that's Nycta's, you know, perspective on that. It's gonna be interesting to hear her thoughts about all this, kind of getting her full story at some point in time. But Tally's the one that kind of pieced it together, where it's like when Alder gets attacked later on. Once again, you didn't stop with the last attack, you're hitting with another one as well. Once again, I don't know whether she miscounted because she didn't realize the biddies were going to take so much of the brunt for her. So she probably was hoping to kill Sarah, but now it's like she was taking another opportunity to. But then partway through it, Tally looks and sees that, because I was wondering like how she had eyes on the inside. Like, we saw that someone there, so I was like, did she take control of one of the biddies? It's like, no, one of the biddies belongs to her. Like, I think, and then once again, I could be mistaken. I'm assuming, and considering the timing, it has to be the biddy that replaced Tally. So I guess Nycta was always waiting for her opportunity. She probably had someone already in place, just waiting for like one of her biddies to get replaced, and it had some like I said, it just if it was a biddy that was already a part of all of this, wouldn't this attack have happened by now? Like I said, I wasn't paying as much attention, but I think that do correct me in the comments down below whether or not that is the one that replaced Tally, because it would also explain the timing. But even then, it's like, why wait till now? I guess you had to kind of get all your ducks in a row. You had to make sure, because going after someone like Alder, going for the jugular when it comes to her, you're going to need like a lot of power and the right circumstances and settings. So like, I guess she wanted to kind of wait for the most opportune time, and the opportune time kind of came. But once again, I don't think she accounted for all the biddies kind of taking the brunt of the attack. So, and in that moment, like Tally with her power of sight, like linked eyes with the biddy, And I don't know whether it's because she had some, I mean, to be fair, like, it all stems from, like, Tally. That core group, obviously, there's special talent there. Like, Tally has, maybe it's like a Craven thing, like, maybe it's like a rare thing amongst them, or maybe it's just Tally's, like, just a special case of, like, oh, she's one in a million. Where she has the powerful insight that she does. She had, well, not just insight, just sight in general. And so in that moment, she locked eyes with the biddy. Like I said, whether it's just her power, whether it's having formerly been a biddy as well, or whether it's a combination of two, she was able to basically reverse track it back to Nikta, and she locked eyes. And it's like, and I wonder, did Nikta kind of like look, like it was like, was it kind of a look back situation? Tally staring into her, she's staring back into Tally. So probably going to lead to Nikta probably going to try and recruit Tally. It's like, well, you saved her, but wait, you know better than anyone else what she's tried to hide. You've seen her for what she is, so it's like, right, Nikta will probably reach out to her and try and recruit her into the spree. We'll see how that all plays out. I don't know how that, because a lot of them is like, because for Tally, it's like joining the spree would be betraying everything that she's ever known, but also everything that she's ever known has been a lie. Like, Alder isn't who she thought she was. Once again, it's so interesting to have seen Tally's story of, like, Tally being, like, kind of the patriot that she was, believing in this, like, wanting to do something greater than herself, and maybe joining the spree might be that. I don't know. I'm not saying that's for a fact, because she won't agree with what the spree do, but she might agree with, like, Alder needs to be removed from the board, because a lot of people, it's like, right, she looks at my friend as nothing more than, not just my friend, my sister, as nothing more than a weapon, and Alder can't just be allowed to have that power at her fingertips. No, it's just too much for it to be under some person's control. Granted, it's under Rael's control, and Rael would never just let Alder use her however she wanted. It's like I get to make my own decisions, but it's also a thing of you're under the army. She kind of runs things, and once again, Alder kind of gets what she wants, so we'll see things kind of go on that front. Another element to this is Adil and Abigail, which I thought Adil has, like, him and his sister are like the last ones who can do the whole blood, well, I think specifically him doing the blood compass thing, which is kind of interesting. It's pointing them towards Charvel, and obviously it's like, Abigail being like, we're going to make them pay. Obviously Adil's like, well, we don't really have much of a plan. She's like, basically, you keep us hidden, we go in there, and then we basically kill them. And it's like, yeah, but it's like, for Adil, he's the non-violent. He brought up before, I'm a pacifist. And then those people are in the, like, bar or whatever, starting, like, running their mouths about, like, oh yeah, like, oh, witches, they raise their daughters to killers, and now they're taking ours. Oh, they have, like, 16 husbands, and her, she looks like she has 14. And then Abigail's like, well, I'm turned out just fine, blah, blah, blah. Started stuff, and he's like, oh, maybe you should take your voice somewhere else or something like that. It's like, first and foremost, it's like, I don't know, I think it's kind of interesting. Is like, you think, like, all the crap talking you do, like, you realize, like, you're talking to a witch. Like, I guess, like, a lot of people get a little too comfortable, but it's also like, right, legally she's not allowed to do her work, so it's like, go ahead and do something, like, you're the one that's gonna get in trouble. But I mean, you might be dead in the process, but sure, talk shit, get hit, right? So I just think that's fascinating. It's like, do you know who you're stepping to? But also, it's like, kind of don't need that just to take down regular people. I've done, like, physical training. I could kick your ass if I want to. And then Adil's just kind of like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And then, like, the dude, like, hits Adil, and Adil hits him back first time. But for Adil, that one punch, it says a lot, because, like, for him, his people, for 10,000 years, they've been pacifists. That's been a tradition of theirs. But it's like, right, that tradition and everything was lost because of people like that in Camarillo, like, killing your people. So it's kind of up to you. But for him, it's like, punching someone is different from killing someone. And for Abigail, it's like, no, like, from now, it needs to be the same thing. Like, you need to kind of just let that, it's because if you have your doubts, it's going to shake my resolve as well. Like, we need to be confirmed in our resolve if we want to do this. So, I don't, like, the Tarim, like, really, like, especially Adil, like, that earthbending. I'm curious, like, what Khalida's, like, response is going to be when she finds out what Adil's done. Because I think it is that thing of, once you cross that line, like, there is no going back. I think for him, it's like, he may not be a soldier, but the fact is that every witch is kind of a soldier right now in this battle, because everyone is being targeted. So he was basically able to do almost like this, like once he touched the ground and then like he spread the dirt, it kind of formed into like this, what would you call it? Almost like a earth bending type of map that kind of gave him a layout of the place. Like, all right, this would be the best place to go in. And so that was first and foremost, Abigail using the wind shear on that guy who still has the audacity to be using Charvel's voice. He's like, oh, like, I can't wait to finish this. And she uses the wind shear. Man, the other people got it hard. He got it super hard. It's to the point like the wind shear started ripping the skin off it. I was like, dude, that's super metal. Holy crap. I was like, that's probably one of the most brutal things we've seen in this show. That was gnarly. And they made sure you get a couple second clear shot of that. Just like, the flesh ripped away. That is nuts. And Abigail got Charvel's, voice back. But then the final dude, Adil took care of, crumpled him like paper. It's like, she's like, Abigail's like, I didn't know you could do this. He's like, I didn't either. It's like, yep. It's kind of interesting. It's like the dark side of earthbending. Just like how bloodbending in the Avatar universe exists, it's kind of like that's the dark side of waterbending. It's so interesting that this is kind of like, showing you like the dark side of, because I don't know if that ever became a thing. I mean, I know there's the other side of earthbending that Toph created, metal bending, but that's so interesting. And even like at the end of it all, I'm skipping around a little bit with some of the stuff, but Adil crumbling that place with his power. It's like I said, it's probably going to mess with him for a little bit, but I think this is him. I don't know if he'll go back. I think for him, he can't go back, considering like, right, there's probably a whole bunch of people that were left in that building, and he still made the decision like, right, I'm going to kill them all because they will come after us, and I'm not about to leave them alive to come after anyone else and kill anyone else's family and get revenge for my own family that was killed because of them. So I don't know. Like I said, I'm so curious to see what his sister says about this, because it's like, you broke like tradition, and I think that's going to lead to a heavy like dissension amongst Adil and his sister. Like I said, we'll have to wait and see how that all plays out, whether he'll be okay with this at the end of it, or whether he'll still be shaking about what he did, or whether this strengthens his conviction of like, no, I'm gonna keep walking forward, not backwards. So we'll see. I was wondering whether or not like, she hasn't perfected it yet, but I was wondering if Abigail was going to try that like work that she did before, trying to create that storm. But I mean, to be fair, like I said, it backfired and kind of like heavily damaged her vocal cords at the time, so probably not going to do that again. This episode also gave me clarification on something. Like, I knew like when like Scylla and them take people's faces that they don't kill them, because we've seen many situations of someone's face being used, but like that person not being dead. But I thought with like that dude, that cop, I thought like with the way because that was our first time seeing what the face stealing process can look like. I guess that's the more visual and like, I guess that's what it, because we never really seen how they do it. It might be a thing of all you need is a picture, you burn that, and then you're able to, or, I don't know. But like the fact is that she's looking at him and then like burned his face, but it seems like, he's totally fine. So it's like, okay, so it's just all for show. But I think it was like, that was a more public version of it. But maybe if like you have like something that belongs to that person and you burn it or something like that, then you get it. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be a picture, but maybe it has to be something like with that person's DNA on it or something. I don't know the real intricacies of how that works, but basically showed up, made him take them to where, once again, Abigail and Adil are attacking to get at the Camarilla who killed Charvel and used her voice. And then also they're coming, Rayo's mom and Scylla on the rescue mission. And obviously it's a conversation of, do you ever regret, going AWOL and joining the spree? And she's like, with every breath, for her, it's like, I thought what I was doing was, by joining the spree and everything, was making a better place for my daughter. And it's like, I might have put her in more danger because I left her unguarded. Because at the very least, if I hadn't done what I did and stuck around, I would at least have been there to protect her. Like, I wouldn't have had to hide in the shadows from her entire life. A lot of her life, I could have been there for her these past few years. Like, but even Scylla's like, if I brought her to you, when you asked me to, like, she wouldn't be in this situation here. But it's like, no, like, the fact of the matter is you protected my daughter. It's like, you really do love her. And she's like, I do. And it's like, at the end of the day, it's like, Rael may never forgive us. And for Scylla, it's like, I don't care. Like, it's okay. Like, she may never forgive me, but I just want her to be safe. And, you know, Rael's mom wants that too. Like, the thing is, like, the moment the truth comes out, she may never forgive me either. But despite everything, it's like, they want to protect the person they love. And when given the opportunity, which, when that guy does, like I said, use the, God. Well, for one, the cop, he kind of gets hit what's coming to him because Rael's mom snaps his neck. So it's like, cool, you served your purpose, so we don't need you anymore. So cool, you're dead. But there's also the guy who used the witch plague. That doctor, he said a line to Rael. I'm blanking on what it is now. I was like, but the moment I heard it, I was like, ooh, that's super gonna come back to you, in the sense that, like, Rael is gonna quote that back to you when she kills you later. I just know it. It was such a specific line that I'm like, oh, that's definitely like a thing of like, oh, I'm gonna say that back to you when I murder you later on, and it's going to be brutal or something. Like, he said something along those lines. I don't remember the exact wording, but it was something of like, this is going to be painful. I think that's what it was. He was like, this is going to be painful. I'm like, oh, she's super going to say that to you. It's like, so, Doc, this is going to be painful, and then going to be in excruciating pain. I know you're going to be. So that's interesting. But Rael's mom sacrificing herself like that, it's like, just tell her that. I'm like, no, please tell me there's another way around this, because it's like, that's sad. She went all these years believing her mom was dead, and it turns out, hey, you're alive. Oh, wait. We reunited after all this time. I'm like, that's the most depressing thing that happens. Like, that happened most recently in something, I will say it, in the Outpost, on the CW. Like, there was a reunion that was like super short-lived. There was a reunion like last season, and then it was like this season that reunion happened again, and it was like, oh, that was super short-lived. I know The Walking Dead has had a few of those of like, oh, that reunion was short-lived. Specifically, I'm referencing like Maggie. It was like, oh, that was uber depressing. But that just, to me, that was such an just sad. Like, you know, it's like, right, like, just with it. But for her, it's like, I guess for her mom, it's like, and I guess it kind of worked out because, like, what Edwin said last episode of, like, right, when your mom hasn't gotten by your side yet, but like, she will be there, you know. And it's like, you know, sad thing is, and I guess that was foreshadowing this, that she would be there kind of when Rael kind of needed her the most, and she pulled the witch plague out of her and ended up dying in the process. And in that moment, she's with Rael in that other world, you know. It's like, you know, just keep fighting. It's like, I'm sorry, I know you're going to be angry, and like, you're going to have a lot of questions that I won't be able to give you an answer, and you know, it's like, just know that I've always loved you. And, you know, it's like, once again, just for a brief moment, she had her mom back, just to have her taken away like that. Didn't even have an opportunity to really even, you know, she didn't even get to meet her technically face to face. I mean, she did in that world, but on the outside, in the real world, until like, it was too late. Like, her mom was already gone. It's like, oh, that dude's super going to suffer super hard, not only for what he did, the kidnapping of the children, but also like being responsible for Rael losing her mom twice in her life. It's like, oh, you're gonna get it super hard, Doctor Dude. You super hard. But also her waking up at the end with Scylla being like, it's okay. It's like kind of confused of like, wait, because like, once again, her mom isn't around to answer, and even Scylla doesn't have all the answers Rael is gonna want. So what the aftermath of that's going to look like, that's going to be really interesting to see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. It's going to be really fascinating to see what the aftermath of this is going to be. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.